everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Here we are, Rush Nation. We're back. Week 10, Fantasy Football Bible. Let's go. It's going to be a interesting week. There's also some breaking news that it doesn't appear likely that Trevor Lawrence is going to be available to play this week. So someone that I had as my QB1, well, it's not QB1 overall, but I had him at 12 in my rankings, is now looking less and less likely to play. And so as a result, it's going to be Mac Jones. So that has thrown my rankings into a bit of a ski whiff, but that's okay. We have made corrections right, literally just as I was about to record. That has happened. So but here we are. We're here. It is going to be a really exciting week. It's moving week now, really. We're starting to look at very few games left before the fantasy playoffs begin. So without further ado, we're going to get straight into this and talk about the key matchups. And there's a big one tonight. It's the Ravens versus the Bengals. Ravens are favored by 6 points on this. The over under 52.5. This is going to be a high-scoring game. Neither defense is particularly great, especially the run defense of the Ravens and the passing defense of the Bengals. So this should be a really, really good game. Should have lots of points. I expect the Ravens to win this quite comfortably. And so with that in mind, I do have Lamar Jackson as my quarterback 1, but I have Joe Burrow as my quarterback 4, which goes with that narrative. I expect lots of points, lots of fantasy relevant players in this one. Moving on to the running backs here. Derrick Henry is my running back 7 this week. Chase Brown is my running back 9. I've got high hopes for him this week, especially on this Baltimore running defense. I definitely think you can get some yardage on them, and I think Baltimore, Cincinnati will be looking to do that, especially to extend some of those drives. Jamar Chase, he is my wide receiver 2 this week. Zay Flowers is down at 21. He's got a tough matchup against Mike Hilton that's not to be underestimated. I do think, especially with the amount of zone that Cincinnati play, I do think that that's going to play a little bit out of Zay Flowers' hands. He's still a very talented receiver. He could usurp this ranking, but that's why I'm a little bit lower than him than the consensus. Rashad Bateman is my wide receiver 40. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver 55. Could move him up in ranks. It does have a favorable matchup in the slot in that area there. So I do feel like it's something that he could benefit from, but I don't feel too comfortable just on he's not knowing of the playbook. Andre Yoshavas, he's at 59, so not someone I would be looking to start. Both tight ends here, no Isaiah Likely this week, so Mark Andrews does shoot up to 5. Mike Gesicki shoots up to tight end 8 after following up with his tight end 1 performance last week. In terms of the defenses this week, definitely fading both. Baltimore down at 19. I think if you had them, you probably might just start them because of the fact that they can get turnovers on anyone, but definitely not one I'm sort of locked into this week if I can get away from it. Justin Tucker is my kicker 1 this week, though. One I definitely feel comfortable with. Evan McPherson is my kicker 14. Just late night. It's at Baltimore. It's not indoors. Not used to conditions. Do think he could get hindered a little bit there, so I'm just keeping an eye on the weather report there as well. So all signs point to him just being slightly outside, but if you've got him again, you'll play him for sure. Next game up on the slate is the one in Germany, and it's the Panthers versus the Giants. Apologies, Germany, for that one. Giants are favored by 6.5 points. The over-under is set at 40.5, so not the lowest over-under of the game. This one I expect to see quite a bit of game on the ground. Not too many other fantasy relevant players. Although I do have Daniel Jones at 10, I do think he will have that rushing ability against the worst running defense in football right now. It still looks like it's going to be Bryce Young this week. He is my quarterback 28. I've got no plans to start him anywhere. I wouldn't even start him in the Superflex League if I could avoid it. Moving on to the running backs here, as I said, both running backs will be relevant here. Tyrone Tracy is all the way up to 12 against the worst running defense in football. Chuba Hubbard, who got a big payday today. He, as at 18, I fully expect him to lead the role as we would expect, especially now with that payday coming through. Devin Singletary's at 41. Don't want any part of him. I would not be starting Jonathan Brooks this week. I would be fading him. I think it's going to take a few weeks for him to get up to some speed. Moving on to the wide receivers here. Malik Neighbors is my wide receiver 3, and he's the only wide receiver I'm sort of desperate to start here. I actually have Slayton at 35. I do think he'll get some traction here on this pretty poor secondary of the Panthers. Wanda Robinson could get some play here at 37. And Xavier Legette is at 39. He has a really good matchup there against Deonte Banks, and probably the best matchup on the board with any wide receiver versus cornerback this week. So he does have flex appeal here, one to keep an eye on. You also keep an eye on Adam Thielen. He's wide receiver 54 for me, but he could be one of those players that just sort of a sudden starts getting catches, as we saw a little bit last year, and we have through his career, especially in the red zone. Moving on to the tight ends here, and Jatavian Sanders is at 20. I know he had a good week last week, but I'm just worried about Tommy Tremble. Thea Johnson's at 23. Again, another tight end with a decent week last week, but again, I'm just not convinced that they're players I'm desperate to start in this format. I do have the Giants at DST 8. However, I'm not desperate to start any of the kickers this week, especially in Germany. Different conditions. Just no, not for me. Stay away from the kickers in this one. Then we move across to the 6 o'clock slate. On Sunday, or 1 o'clock, so the early slate games on Sunday, and it is a bit of a smaller slate because of what's been going on. So we have 7 games in that slate, and that's where I'm going to cover off, and then I will do the remaining 5 games of the week tomorrow and cover those off for you. So we're going to start with the Colts versus the Bills. Bills are only favored by 4 in this one. I don't quite get that one over under 47.5. Look, I'd expect in this one the over's in play here, definitely. I do think the Bills will score points. I do think the Colts will score points with Joe Flacco, and it was a bad week last week, but I do think they'll get better. I'm not sure I'm only having the Bills at 4. It's a bit of a dent in confidence to what they're doing. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that the Bills will win this comfortably. I think the Colts will be better than they were last week. I think that's a given. But I actually think that the Bills will be far more comfortable, and I'm actually putting more faith in the fact that this will go over and that the Bills will win comfortably. And that's where I've got my ranks sort of set. So Josh Allen, for example, is my quarterback 2 this week. Joe Flacco, after learning the lessons of last week, I've got him at QB 21, but he is this guy with a high ceiling, and if you're in a desperation matchup, it's one I definitely would be putting in just because he has that factor of chaos around him. Jonathan Taylor is my running back 4. I actually think he's getting more and more work, and he's starting to look better and healthier, so I'm definitely in with Jonathan Taylor putting up a big week. James Cook is at 21. This run defense of Indianapolis is sneaky good. I think that's going to just hamper James Cook a little bit. And I also think Ray Davis is going to take a bit of the workload after his explosive of last week. Can't put the genie back in the box. He is running back 36 for me. I'm not starting Ray Davis, but I do think he is going to be in line to maybe be a flex wherever he play moving forwards in weeks to come. Josh Downs is my wide receiver 6. He is definitely Joe Flacco's favorite target, and he benefits from a half-decent matchup this week as well. Khalil Shakir is wide receiver 24, definitely startable. Keon Coleman, if he's fit, he has got a questionable tag. I've got him at 31. He's growing more and more. It's kind of what we expected. First half of the season was going to be pretty ropey, and second half of the season he's going to start to come on a little bit more. I actually have Michael Pittman Jr. at 50. He's got Christian Benford in coverage, which is going to be really, really tough. He's been very good this season. That's going to be a tough one to get over and manage. So I'm not too keen on that. Amari Cooper at 52. I still think he's getting to grips with the playbook, and it takes a bit of time for that sort of receiver to get going. He's also got a questionable tag as well. Alec Pierce is at 53. So I'm not keen to start any of those really in that one. Dalton Kincaid, as I said in the start sets, I do think it's I've got him at 12. I don't feel good about him at 12. Probably going to move him out at 12. I just don't think that it's a week for him to shine and put up a lot of points. And don't forget, like, Titan 12 is like 4 for 40. It's not a big performance. It's kind of what we're looking at. So I'm just not that keen on him having a big impact this week. I do have the Bills at 5. This is definitely a team in the Colts that turn over the football a lot. So take advantage of that, Bills. If you fire them up this week, that's a definite start. And then I'm having Tyler Bass here at 6. Both of those options are definitely available to you to start this week. Moving on to Jaguars versus Vikings, as I talked about, I need to kind of reset the rest of my rankings here because it is Mac Jones, it's not Trevor Lawrence. And so it kind of throws the whole thing completely into flux. And this betting line I've got here is the Vikings favored by 7 with the over-under at 44. It's probably not live. This news really only just came out. I haven't seen a correction on this line yet. So I actually expect the Vikings to probably be double-digit favorites, taking Trevor Lawrence out of this lineup. I think it'll be a dysfunctional lineup for the Jaguars if that's the case, and then that does make me worry about what happens as the game script goes on. If this game script goes 2 out, does that mean that Jefferson and Addison get a bit of pushback because it all goes through Jones and Ty Chandler potentially becomes a thing? So there is a bit of reworking to do in my rankings for this show, but I wanted to get it out there. So I've got here for the quarterbacks as it stands right now. Sam Darnold at 6 because this is a great matchup to pass on Jacksonville, one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL. As I talked about Mac Jones, he's at 26 in my rankings as it stands right now. Now, the one thing I would say with the Jacksonville Jaguar running backs here is I do think that there is opportunity to change. I've got Aaron Jones at 14. That might move him closer to 12 with this game script. I've got Bigsby and Etienne at 31 and 34. They both got questionable tags. I need to see what the injury report's going to be. I'm probably more in line to move one of them up. And if I had to move one up, it would probably be Etienne if I felt he was going to start, especially given the support that they'll need to get to Jones. And I mentioned Ty Chandler. What I actually meant was Cam Akers. I actually think Cam Akers could be in line for a bigger role here if this is a blowout. So I wouldn't start him, but that could cap Aaron Jones a little bit, something to keep an eye on. I do have Jefferson as my wide receiver 1. This is the best matchup on the board from a team perspective, so we should really take advantage of that. So one to keep an eye on. Brian Thomas Jr., I've got at 19 with the questionable tag. He actually sort of has wide receiver 1 upside, keeping an eye on that. Jordan Addison, I think, probably is the fantasy player who will have the most effect in the game script here. If it gets too much of a blowout, I think he's the one that will get hurt by this. So he's at 26 in my rankings. He can move down from there. Gabe Davis is at 49. He's got a questionable tag. Keeping an eye on him. Parker Washington is at 58. He might move up with Mac Jones in because we know that Mac Jones likes to put the ball in the slot quite considerable, and I think they'll put some plays in there to keep an eye on Mac Jones, just getting comfortable in an offense he's not too comfortable with, as he's not played too many times before in this offense. Evan Ingram is at 4. He could probably be switched with Cade Otton. Again, I think there'll be heavy usage of that. TJ Hawkinson's at 14. We're still waiting for him to get fully healthy and acclimatized, so I'm not prepared to put him any higher at this stage. What I will say on this is that the Vikings at 6 probably could go up to as high as 3 or 4 now. So they're a definite must start this week. And I'm not in on the Jacksonville Jaguars defense at all. It's been appalling, both in fantasy and also in real life. And then I've got John Parker Romo at 28 because I just don't know anything about him. He will probably move up in my board, but I'm not sure I'm racing out to go and get him. I would probably take a more trusted and reliable kicker. I don't like putting kickers in my rankings. I just don't know, and I don't know anything about him. So that's why I'm just being overcautious. But he will move up from there. But I don't feel too comfortable about starting him this week anyway, or especially in a game that matters. Moving on to Commanders versus the Steelers, and this should be a really, really good game. Commanders favored by 3, the over under 45. I think with that Steelers D, I think they will definitely keep the Commanders at bay, but I think that's a little low on the offensive side. So I see the over probably getting squeaked over here. Commanders by 3 feels like it's a soft line. I feel like they will win it, and they'll win it by more than 3. But I think it'll be their ground game that will probably do that. So I really like the ground game from the Washington side. I do think that Terry McLaurin could be in for a tricky week, still worth starting. But I think that there will be Jaden Daniels, be Brian Robinson, they'll be the two catalysts for this performance, and then I think we'll see what happens from there. So I actually have Jayden Daniels just because I do think there will be a bit of containment there. He is my QB7 this week. I think they're also trying to reduce that workload a little bit on him. It's a long way till their bye week still to go. And I don't think they want that burnout. Russell Wilson, for me, is at quarterback 24. This is a good Washington defense, and he will feel the effects of that one. Moving on to the running backs here, I have Brian Robinson Jr. He is currently questionable, but I am hoping he does play this week. He is at 17. He has upside here. Najee Harris is at 26. Jaylen Warren's at 30. Jaylen Warren is getting better week by week. One to keep an eye on. Austin Ekeler is at 33. Flexible, but I'm not desperate to really start him in too many places if I can avoid it. Moving on to the wide receivers here. And George Pickens is at 14. He has wide receiver 1 upside. I think they'll be chasing this game. I think Pickens will be force-fed a lot of targets. I really like his outlook this week. Terry McLaurin's at 22. As I said, tough assignment here. He's going to be up against Joey Porter. That's going to be a really tough assignment. But I do think he will be fed the ball the most. So therefore, I like the volume play to keep him as a wide receiver too. Noah Brown at 38. He is coming on week after week, better and better. He could be a good deep shot threat here for Washington. But they're the only 3 I'm probably desperate to start this week. I'm not keen to start Mike Williams this week, given the lack of time in that offense. Pat Freiermuth is my highest ranked tight end in this game. He's at 19. I'm staying very well clear of that. Zach Ertz is getting less and less of a role, so I'm just out on him. No need to start the tight ends in this one. Again, unless desperate, in which case you got to do what you got to do. Steelers DST at 11, at 10, Washington Commanders at 11, both viable. As much as I think the over will get squeaked over, I still think there'll be plays that will make them up. I don't think it's going to be a big blowout game. Austin Seibert, although he's got a questionable tag, expecting to go. He's at 3. Chris Boswell's at 10. I can see me probably moving him up towards the end of the week. This is definitely a good game for Chris Boswell. Saints versus Falcons. This line I don't get at all. I don't get it. I don't understand it. This makes no sense to me. The Falcons are favored by 3.5 points. The over-under is set at 46. I don't get it. If you really believe that the Saints are going to put in a performance with no wide receivers, because it doesn't look like Chris Olave is going to go, with Derek Carr, with everything he has gone through this week, with them sacking their coach, and Alvin Kamara is a good player, but is he really just that good on his own? I don't see how the Saints are going to put up more than 15 points. I just don't. I don't unless it's all Kamara all the time and he dominates. I struggle. Taysom Hill will get a few, sure. I'm not sure I believe that the Falcons are only going to win this by 3.5. I think this is a blowout. I think it's a blowout in hiding. I don't understand the line. I still think the over gets hit. I think the over gets hit because I think the Falcons can put up 35 points. I genuinely believe that. I think they'll dominate the time in possession and they'll be all over that. And that's why I've got Kirk Cousins at 12 this week. I do think he can make the most of it. Don't forget, there's no Marshawn Lattimore there as well. So it's a much easier defense to pass on than it would have been in future weeks. Derek Carr's at 22. They'll try and chase the game. And with Alvin Kamara there, he could get a boost of points. But I'm not desperate there to chase him unless absolutely desperate. Alvin Kamara there is my running back 1. Obviously, he's the entire offense. There isn't anyone else there to worry about there. So he is 1. Bijan Robinson is at 6th. He'll get a lot of joy. I see Tyler Shea getting involved in this game. He's at 35. Don't be shocked if I move him into my top 30 this week. There's definitely room for him, especially with the game script and the blowout. He'll get more and more yardage in the second half. Darnell Mooney, big game for him. He'll be at 11. Drake London is questionable with that huge concussion. He's at 16 currently. I do think they'll take it a bit easier on him. I think Darnell Mooney will get a bit more work. I also think that Ray McLeod will get some work here. He's at 41. He's definitely flexible. As for the wide receivers, I've got Mason Tipton at 46. I do think he can be relevant. I do think he could break off. If Derek Carr can put that deep ball in the air and land it, then I do think there's a play here for him. And I think he could break off, especially as there's not much in this offense other than Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill, who is my tight end 6 on the week. So I definitely think that there is an option here to get involved. Kyle Pitts is questionable. He's my tight end 11. But I think Hill is definitely relevant for goal line stuff here and just anything just to try and stifle something from the offense. I've actually got the Atlanta Falcons at 13, only because I'm really struggling to see any of the ones above. If I jumped them up 1, it would probably be at the expense of maybe the Commanders or or the Steelers, one of them, maybe even the Steelers, potentially, but they're definitely startable. It's a good one to chase playing the Saints, that's for sure. Young Hoku is my kicker too this week. It's a great matchup for him. Fire him up. I'm staying away from Blake Groupie this week. I think they're going to struggle to score points. Moving on to, we've got 3 games left at this slate. Chiefs versus Broncos. Chiefs are favored by 7.5, over under 42. Yeah, this all feels right to me. I don't think that the Chiefs are an offensive powerhouse. They only put 24 points up in regulation against one of the worst defenses in the NFL in the Buccaneers. And the Broncos were really poor against the Ravens, and I think against really good teams, they're going to struggle, and they're going to struggle in a big way. And so as a result, because I don't think that there's many points on play here, I actually have these quarterbacks back to back. They're 18 and 19. Mahomes at 18, Bo Nix at 19. I've got no interest in starting them. Not this week. I'll definitely be moving on from them this week. Kareem Hunt is questionable. He is my running back 15 this week. Javonte Williams, my running back 28. I don't really want a part of him this week. KC, best defense stopping the run. Don't be surprised if I move him down even further this week. Alonso, so we'll do some minor adjustments after the fact. So really, the only running back I really want to start in this game is Kareem Hunt. Just keep an eye here on Isaiah Pacheco. He could be activated. I'm not so sure how big his role is going to be, even if he is, but I just want to keep an eye on. Highest ranked wide receiver in this game I have is Courtland Sutton, a wide receiver 36, and it tells you everything I think about this game. I think it's low scoring. I think the Chiefs will be comfortable, but they'll grind it out. I expect the under in this game. Xavier Weavy's at 44, DeAndre Hopkins 45. He's got Pat Surtain this week. Don't fancy that at all. See you later. I'll be benching him everywhere I can. I'll be staying away. Travis Kelce, tight end 2. I think he'll be the focal point of this offense. He'll be the only one I'm really interested in this week. Nothing from Denver at tight end, as you would expect. Kansas City Chiefs are my DST 4 this week. It's definitely a good matchup for them. And then also for Harrison Butker, he's my kicker 7. So I feel pretty good about him as well. Next is Buccaneers versus the 49ers. 49ers favored by 6, over under 50.5. I think the over gets smashed, as it does every week with the Buccaneers. You can take the over and put it to the bank. 6 feels right. I don't think that's wrong. Buccaneers have been good. They've been in games. Lost a couple of overtime ones without getting the ball, is what happened on Monday. You know, I felt the 9.5 with the Chiefs was too much. I didn't feel that was right. I thought that game was be closer than it was. It went to overtime. Yeah, okay. The difference is 6 in the end through the inability to have a overtime shootout, and through the Chiefs basically getting to score with no response. That game was a lot closer than I thought it would be, and I think the Buccaneers are always typically disrespected in betting lines, but I think this one's probably about right. I do expect with Christian McCaffrey back, the 49ers will have too much for the Buccaneers in this one, but the Buccaneers schedule will turn after their bye week, so there is some good news for them up front. Brock Purdy is my quarterback 3. Baker Mayfield is on the injury report, but I expect him to be fine. Is my quarterback 8 this week. I'm not worried about Baker Mayfield because no matter what defense, he is putting up points. Christian McCaffrey is expected to return. He's still officially listed on IR, but he will be back, I'm pretty sure. He is going to be my RB5 this week. As I said in the starting systems, Bucky Irving's the guy I probably would have over Rashad White. He is my running back 27. He's got a toe injury, I believe, so he's going to be on the questionable report pretty much for the rest of the season. He'll play hurt the rest of the season, but he's okay. He will play. Rashad White is at 29. I think he'll get some receiving work. Both of these guys could have upside and move, but yeah, it's a bit hard to sort of predict what happens there. Sean Tucker's at 46. I'd like to see him involved more in the game because he is definitely a very explosive back. Next, we've got the wide receivers here. Deebo Samuel is questionable, but he is my wide receiver 7. Juwan Jennings, my wide receiver 27. Sterling Shepard, wide receiver 42. Jalen McMillan, wide receiver 56. All of these are questionable, by the way. Ricky Pearsall at 61. I think he just needs a few more games before we see what's what with him. And then we get into the tight ends here, and I've got Cade Otton at 3. He is definitely someone I would be watching, but George Kittle is my tight end 1 this week. You can always start tight ends against the Buccaneers. They will give you the points over the middle. They're not too worried. And then it comes to the DSTs, and I have the San Francisco 49ers at 12. You drafted them high, you're going to need to start them, but don't expect them to have necessarily the best week. And we expect Jake Moody to be back. He is questionable. He is my kicker 13 this week. But Chase McLaughlin is my kicker 16. Both viable. If you've got them, you'll start them and they'll score points. Last game of the slate is Bears Patriots. Bears favored by 6, over under 38.5. I think the over-under's hard. I do think that they'll go over it. I know there's some question marks about the Bears. I know I went pretty hard on them on Monday on the Fantasy Wildcard show. But I do expect them to win this game. I think 6 is a fair line. I think the over-under's a little soft. I think you can get the over on that pretty comfortably. I definitely see a pathway to that one. But there's not going to be too many fantasy stars in this game. I think that's pretty clear. Caleb Williams is my quarterback 16 this week, and Drake May, quarterback 23. I know there was some heroics with Drake May last week, but you can't bank on that every single week. As for the receiver, the running backs in this game, DeAndre Swift is at 13. I think the game script will suit him. He'll get a bit more work out of here than normal. Ramondre Stevenson, he is at 22. Roschon Johnson's at 38 now that there's been a trade of Khalil Herbert to the Bengals, and it looks like he might get an appearance tonight. I wouldn't be starting him. I don't feel too comfortable starting him in this scenario, so I'll be staying away, but it will free up some touches for Roschon Johnson, so he becomes sort of flex-worthy, but I probably wouldn't play him. As for the wide receivers, DJ Moore is at 10. Keenan, I do think he'll get a bounce back. He's got a really good matchup this week. So do keep an eye on that one. Keenan Allen's at 25. Raymond Dunze is at 32. Demario Douglas is at 33. So all of them I expect to get some sort of base points. But I don't see a real high upside except for DJ Moore. As for the tight ends in this one, Hunter Henry, this is the sort of game he will get a touchdown in. So I do expect him to get one here in Chicago. So I do fancy him to be potentially relevant. You're gambling on that. So he's a high upside tight end 15 for me. And then in terms of the defenses, Chicago Bears is at 2. Definitely fire them up this week. You can definitely make good progress there, but I'm not starting any of the kickers. That's going to do it for the Bible. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was concise enough and made some real impact. I'll be back tomorrow for the 5 remaining games. They're the Chargers versus the Titans, the Cowboys versus the Eagles, Cardinals v Jets, Texans v Lions, and then Monday Night Football, the Rams versus the Dolphins. Some really good games in that late slate, so looking forward to breaking down all of those for you. Good luck tonight. Don't forget to take those players out of your flex. Don't forget to set those lineups. Don't forget to work those waiver wires and be active as much as possible. But until then, Rush Nation, until I speak to you tomorrow, don't forget, as always, keep rushing.